They looked at her uniform and assumed she delivered mail. They didn't know she could deconstruct the syntax of 27 languages before breakfast. When a billionaire tech mogul invites a random postal worker to the world's most exclusive communications summit, the elite laughed, until the moment the technology failed, and she was the only one in the room who could speak. This is a story about prejudice, hidden genius, and the power of words. If you believe talent can come from anywhere, hit that like button right now. And if you want more incredible stories of underdogs proving the world wrong, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You do not want to miss this. The fluorescent lights of the Chicago sorting facility hummed with a sound that Elara Vance always associated with the phoneme /c/, a voiced alveolar fricative. To everyone else, it was just a buzz. To Elara, it was a texture of sound. Elara was 42, with laugh lines etched around her eyes and hands calloused from handling rough parcels and paper cuts. She wore the standard-issue blue postal uniform, which to the world acted as an invisibility cloak. When you deliver the mail, you are part of the landscape, not a protagonist. "Hey, Elara. Quit daydreaming and help me with this bin," shouted Marcus, the shift supervisor. "Coming, Marcus," she replied. Her voice was calm, her diction precise. She didn't speak with the clipped rhythm of the South Side, nor the nasal flatness of the North. Elara's voice was a chameleon. Nobody at the depot knew that the notebook tucked inside her locker wasn't a diary. It was filled with derivations of Noam Chomsky's minimalist program, hand-drawn trees of sentence structures, and comparative analyses of Proto-Indo-European roots versus modern Basque. Elara was a ghost in the academic machine. She couldn't afford college in her 20s, she had a sick mother and a younger brother to raise. But she had the internet, the public library, and a brain that absorbed linguistic patterns like a sponge absorbs water. Over 20 years, she had mastered 6 languages fluently and could read a dozen more. But her true expertise was computational linguistics, understanding how machines process human language. She spent her nights on obscure forums under the handle of lexicon_v, debating professors from Oxford and MIT. She corrected their code, pointed out flaws in their natural language processing, NLP, models, and then went to work at 6 a.m. to sort bills and birthday cards. It was a Tuesday when the letter came. It wasn't a bill. It was a heavy, cream-colored envelope with gold embossing, Thorne Industries. Elara's hands trembled. Julian Thorne was the billionaire founder of Thorne AI, the company on the verge of cracking universal translation, the holy grail of communication. She opened it. "Dear Ms. Vance. Or should I say, lexicon_v. Your recent critique of our semantic vector spacing on the open source forum was illuminating. It solved a problem my team has been stuck on for 8 months. I am hosting the Apex Communications Summit in Geneva next week. I have enclosed a plane ticket and credentials. I want to meet the mind behind the screen." The Apex Summit was held in a ballroom that cost more than Elara's entire apartment building. Chandeliers dripped crystals like frozen tears. The air smelled of expensive cologne and old money. Elara stood at the entrance. She hadn't bought a gown. She couldn't justify the expense. She wore her best Sunday suit, a modest, charcoal gray skirt suit that was clean but clearly off the rack. In a sea of Armani and Versace, she looked like the help. She approached the registration desk. The young woman behind the computer didn't even look up. "Staff entrance is through the kitchen, ma'am." Elara tightened her grip on her purse. "I'm not staff. I'm an attendee. Elara Vance." The woman looked up, her eyes scanning Elara's attire with a mix of confusion and pity. She typed the name, expecting an error. Her eyebrows shot up. "Oh. You have a VIP access pass. My apologies." She handed over a black lanyard with gold lettering. As Elara walked into the main hall, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations didn't stop, but eyes darted toward her. She was a black woman in a department store suit walking into a room dominated by white men in tuxedos and Asian tech giants in designer streetwear. "Is that the diversity hire?" she heard a hushed whisper to her left. "Probably won a contest," another chuckled. Elara kept her head high. She walked toward the buffet, needing something to do with her hands. "Excuse me," a voice drawled. She turned to find a man holding an empty champagne flute. He was tall, wearing a tuxedo that fit him too perfectly. She recognized him immediately, Dr. Eris Sterling, the head of linguistics at Cambridge. She had cited his papers, she had also torn one of them apart on the forum 3 years ago. "Could you grab me a refill?" "Brute, not Rose," Sterling said, holding the glass out to her without looking her in the face. Elara stared at the glass. The heat rose in her cheeks, not from embarrassment, but from a cold, hard anger. "I'm not a waitress, Dr. Sterling," she said. "But while we're chatting, I've always wanted to ask, in your 2019 paper on morphological ambiguity, why did you ignore the agglutinative structure of Turkish? It rendered your entire conclusion regarding AI suffix processing invalid." Sterling froze. The glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the marble floor. The crash silenced the immediate vicinity. He stared at her, mouth slightly open. Excuse me? The Turkish vowel harmony rules, Elara continued, her voice steady and projecting slightly, the way she did when calling out zip codes over the noise of the sorting machine. You applied an Indo-European framework to an Altaic language family. It's why your translation software crashes when processing legal documents in Budapest. It's a rookie mistake for a department head. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Sterling's face turned a violent shade of red. Who are you? He hissed. Elara Vance. Postal worker. She smiled. I handle the mail. I also handle the mistakes people like you leave in the margins. Before Sterling could retaliate, the lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the center stage. Julian Thorne walked out. He looked like a modern-day prophet, jeans, black t-shirt, a blazer worth more than a car. Ladies and gentlemen, Thorne began, his voice amplified by perfect acoustics. Language is the final barrier. Today, that barrier falls. I present to you the Babel Protocol. A massive screen lit up behind him. This isn't just translation, Thorne said. This is interpretation. It understands context, emotion, and cultural nuance. To demonstrate, we have invited an elder from a remote village in the Solomon Islands, a speaker of a dying dialect that has never been catalogued by digital archives. An elderly man was led onto the stage. He looked terrified. Thorne handed him a microphone. The AI will listen, Thorne explained. And it will translate his story into English, French, and Mandarin simultaneously. The room held its breath. The elder began to speak. His voice was raspy, melodic, full of clicks and tonal shifts that defied standard Western notation. The screen behind Thorne flickered. Processing. Processing. Text began to appear. I am hungry. The fish are gone. The water is blue. The audience politely applauded. But Elara frowned. She stepped closer to the stage, pushing past a stunned Dr. Sterling. She listened intently to the phonemes the man was producing. She heard the glottal stops, the specific cadence of a lament. The screen continued. The sky is happy. We dance for the sun. Elara's heart hammered. This was wrong. This was disastrously wrong. The AI was hallucinating. It was matching the tonal patterns to the nearest known language, likely a generic Polynesian derivative, and filling in the blanks with statistically probable nonsense. The elder on stage was crying. Tears streamed down his face as he spoke faster, his hand gesturing wildly to the ground, then to the sky. The screen read, "It is a good festival. We have much food. Stop." The shout cut through the dark auditorium like a knife. Elara Vance was standing in the center aisle, her hand raised. Stop the demonstration. You're insulting him. Julian Thorne shielded his eyes against the spotlight to see who had interrupted. Security, he muttered. Two burly guards started toward Elara. He isn't talking about a festival. Elara yelled, her voice projecting with the authority of someone who had spent 20 years ensuring vital messages reached their destination. He's talking about a landslide. He's saying his village was buried. He's asking for help for his grandchildren. The room went deadly silent. Thorne signaled the guards to hold. He looked at the screen, then at the weeping man, then at Elara. Who said that? The woman who fixed your vector spacing, Elara said, walking toward the stage. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea, mostly out of shock. She climbed the stairs. Up close, the elder looked exhausted. Elara didn't speak his language, nobody did, that was the point, but she understood universals. She understood that the repetition of a specific fricative sound paired with a downward hand gesture in Austronesian-influenced syntaxes often indicated a loss or burial, not a dance. She turned to Thorne. Your AI is operating on a predictive model based on happy path scenarios. It's treating his distress signals as rhythmic chanting because it hasn't been trained on grief in tonal languages. It's prioritizing syntax over pragmatics. Thorne looked at her, analyzing. Can you prove it? Give me the mic, Elara said. She didn't speak to the crowd. She turned to the elder. She lowered her body language, making herself smaller. She used a gesture she knew was universal in that region, palms open, slightly cupped. A question. The man looked at her. He saw her eyes, kind, patient, lacking the arrogance of the other people in the room. He spoke again, slowly. Elara listened. She closed her eyes, visualizing the sounds. She wasn't translating word for word, she was decoding the intent. He's using a recursive structure, Elara said into the mic, he keeps repeating the sound kalu. In related dialects, that's not a sun. It's mud. And a SIK isn't a dance. It's the sound of breaking. He's describing the sound of the mountain breaking. She turned to the console operator. Adjust the algorithm parameters. Lower the semantic confidence threshold. Prioritize acoustic intensity and repetitive minor key tonality. Switch the base linguistic frame from Polynesian Standard to Tri-Melanesian Pidgin combined with archaic syntax. The operator looked at Thorne. Thorne nodded. Do it. The operator typed furiously. The screen flickered. The text cleared. The elder spoke again. New text appeared on the huge screen. The earth ate the houses. The mud took the little ones. Why do you smile? Why do you clap? We are dying. A gasp went through the audience. It was a visceral, horrified sound. The polite applause from earlier felt suddenly grotesque. The elder collapsed to his knees, sobbing. Elara dropped the mic and knelt beside him, putting a hand on his shoulder. It was the only language that mattered in that moment. The demonstration was cancelled. The cocktail party was cancelled. The summit turned into a rescue coordination effort. Because the translation was finally accurate, Thorne Industries was able to pinpoint the location of the village based on the elder's description of the geography. 8 helicopters were dispatched within the hour. Elara sat in the green room backstage, drinking a bottle of water. She was exhausted. The door opened. Julian Thorne walked in. He wasn't wearing his blazer anymore. He looked tired, human. Dr. Sterling told me you were a waitress, Thorne said, sitting on the edge of the table. Postal worker, Elara corrected. I sort mail. Zip code 60621. You just humiliated my life's work, Thorne said. And you saved that man's family. And you saved my company from a PR nightmare that would have destroyed us. Your tech is impressive, Mr. Thorne, Elara said. But it lacks a soul. You're teaching computers to read dictionaries. You need to teach them to read people. Language isn't just data. It's blood. It's history. It's pain. Thorne nodded slowly. I offered you a job in that letter. But I think I aimed too low. He pulled a contract out of his pocket. He crossed out the salary figure, which was already high, and wrote a new number. Then he crossed out the title, Senior Linguist. He wrote, Chief Humanist Officer and Head of Linguistic Architecture. I don't care about your degree. Or lack of one, Thorne said. I care that you heard what nobody else could. Will you help us build this right? Elara looked at the contract. The number had 6 zeros. It was enough to retire her mother, send her brother to any college he wanted, and never sort another envelope again. She looked up at Thorne. I have one condition. Name it. Dr. Sterling, she smiled. I want him to bring me a coffee. Brute. Not Rose. Thorne laughed. A genuine, loud laugh. Done. Elara Vance didn't just change the algorithm, she changed the industry. 2 years later, the Babel protocol was released, but it was different. It didn't just translate words, it conveyed tone, urgency, and sarcasm. It became the tool that bridged warring nations and helped doctors treat patients in remote corners of the world without errors. Elara still keeps a notebook. But now, she doesn't hide it in a locker. She fills it while sitting in a glass office overlooking Geneva. Every now and then, she visits the post office. She walks in, smells the dust and the paper, and smiles. Because she knows that while the uniform made her invisible to the world, it was the silence that taught her how to truly listen.